My 2-year relationship with Marissa, 24, ended because her friend group always came first. She skipped our anniversary, my graduation, and even my mom's surgery to prioritize them, leaving me as an afterthought in my own relationship. My 2-year relationship with Marissa, 24, has finally concluded. Her social circle consistently took precedence over our connection, and I've reached my absolute limit. This whole situation feels like an overwhelming tangle, and I barely know where to begin unraveling it. Marissa and I have been together for over 24 months, and I genuinely believed we shared something significant. We took the step of moving in 6 months ago, sharing all expenses, embracing the full domestic routine. Yet in recent times, it felt less like I was dating one person and more like 5. Here's the core issue. Marissa has this incredibly close group of friends: Chloe, Adrian, Tasha, and Finn. They humorously refer to themselves as the squad and are perpetually together. Their group chats are always active, they plan identical Halloween costumes, and so on. Initially, I found it charming that she had such devoted companions. Now, I question if I was truly in a relationship or simply a contributing roommate. The final straw occurred last weekend. Our second anniversary was approaching, and I had meticulously planned a special evening. I'd secured reservations at the very restaurant where we shared our first meaningful date and obtained tickets for a band she absolutely loves. Nothing exorbitant, just thoughtful gestures. I found her in the living room, absorbed in Instagram stories of her friends' weekend escapades. "Hey, I've arranged something special for our anniversary next Saturday," I announced, taking a seat beside her. She glanced up from her phone, and her expression was as grim as if I'd shared devastating news. "Oh," she said, slowly lowering the device. "Oh, darling, that's the same evening as Tasha's birthday pre-party. You know I absolutely can't miss that." My stomach sank, but I tried to remain composed. "Well, perhaps you could ask them if you all could move it to Friday or Sunday instead?" She began shaking her head before I even finished my sentence. No, you don't grasp it. Tasha specifically chose Saturday because it's the only night everyone is free. Adrian has that major work conference beginning Sunday. And Chloe's been so swamped with her new job. She really needs this. Plus, Finn just broke up with his girlfriend, so he needs our support right now. As she spoke, her face grew more animated, almost as if she was warming to her argument. "We all genuinely need this night, Ethan. The group hasn't properly gathered in weeks." "But it's our anniversary," I countered, disliking the weakness in my own voice. "This only happens once a year. You can see your friends practically any other time." That's when her whole demeanor shifted. She leaned back, crossed her arms, and gave me a look that implied I was being utterly irrational. "Love can wait, but friendship cannot. They were a part of my life before you, and they will remain after." I simply stared. Her words struck me like a physical blow. They will remain after. Not if something happened to us, not God forbid we ever parted, but a casual, matter-of-fact after. As if our split was already marked on her calendar, nestled between next month's group vacation and Chloe's birthday celebration. Despite everything we'd built together, I was still merely a temporary fixture, easily postponed for social plans. This wasn't an isolated incident. My graduation from my master's program? She attended Adrienne's housewarming party instead. My brother's wedding last month? She was too drained from a 3-day festival with the squad to accompany me. Even when my mother was hospitalized for surgery, Marissa couldn't visit because it clashed with their weekly game night. Yet, she expected me to drop everything when she needed something. Last month, she called me at 2 in the morning to pick her up from a distant bar because Finn was too intoxicated to drive safely. Upon my arrival, she barely acknowledged my presence, continuing to take selfies with everyone while I stood there like a taxi driver. The entire ride home was spent discussing drama between Chloe and some guy from the bar. The most painful aspect was how she discussed our relationship with them. I overheard her on the phone with Tasha last week, remarking that I was going through a jealous phase and needed to learn to share her time better. As if I were some insecure adolescent, rather than her partner desiring to feel like a priority occasionally. I've attempted to discuss balance with her, emphasizing that relationships also require cultivation. She would always promise to improve, then immediately schedule plans that excluded me. When I pointed out this recurring pattern, she accused me of attempting to isolate her from her friends. It felt like an impossible situation. I'm currently writing this from a coffee shop because I couldn't bear to be in our apartment any longer. I've spent the morning browsing online for new residences. I found a suitable one-bedroom place about 20 minutes away that I can comfortably afford alone. The lease application is awaiting submission in my email drafts. I care deeply for her, but I cannot continue to be an afterthought in my own relationship. My friends suggest an ultimatum, but frankly, I'm exhausted from pleading with someone to want to spend time with me. Is it truly too much to ask that your girlfriend occasionally desires to simply be your girlfriend? Edit. Reading all your comments has been incredibly insightful. To everyone questioning why I haven't just ended it, you are right. I kept hoping she'd recognize her behavior, but she's clarified her priorities. I'm submitting that rental application as soon as I return home. Update 1. The original post gained far more attention than I anticipated. Thank you for all the encouragement and advice. I wish I could share a happy ending where we resolve things, but you'll soon see. I submitted the rental application that very day, receiving approval within 48 hours, which felt like an affirmation. I spent the following week discreetly moving my belongings whenever Marissa was out with the squad, a convenient arrangement, as that was almost daily. By the time she realized something was amiss, approximately 80% of my possessions were already gone. She arrived home Thursday night around midnight. Apparently, they had visited a new rooftop bar Finn wanted to explore. She immediately noticed my gaming setup was missing. I heard her calling my name from the living room, her voice rising in pitch with each room she checked. Ethan, what in the world is happening here? Where's all your things? I was in our bedroom, packing the last of my clothes when she discovered me. She paused in the doorway for a moment, scanning the room as if cataloging the absent items. Are you moving out? Her voice fractured slightly on the last word. I handed her the letter I had composed. I tried to keep it direct and sincere. I needed a partner who genuinely prioritized our relationship. I could no longer feel like an afterthought in her life. She read it quickly once, then again more slowly, her eyes widening. When she looked up at me, it was as though I were a stranger. You're seriously leaving me because I have friends? Because I won't abandon the people who've been there for me for years. I sank onto the edge of the bed, suddenly drained. Marissa, this isn't about you having friends. Then what is it about? She snapped, waving the letter. Because this whole thing reads like you want me to choose between you and everyone I care about. I want you to care about me, too, I stated quietly. I want to feel like I matter to you, like our relationship holds significance. She looked at me as if I'd suggested something absurd. Of course you matter, but I can't just ditch my friends every time you seek attention. Something twisted painfully in my chest. Marissa, I asked you to spend one evening with me for our anniversary, just one. And I explained why that night was important, more important than us. She threw her hands up. This is ridiculous, Ethan. You're discarding 2 years because you can't handle me having a social life. You knew exactly who I was when we started dating. I gazed at her, truly seeing her, and realized she genuinely didn't comprehend. In her perception, I was the one at fault. I was the one being unreasonable. I thought I knew who you were, I responded, standing up and zipping my bag. I thought you were someone who wanted to build a future with me. I do want to build something with you, but not if it means cutting off everyone else in my life. I'm not asking you to cut them off. I'm asking you to create room for me, too. But she was already shaking her head, and I could see in her eyes that we would simply continue in circles. She viewed this as me being overly controlling. I saw it as fundamental relationship upkeep. There was no common ground we were both willing to discover. After another 20 minutes of the same arguments repeating, I finally raised my hands. I'm done, Marissa. Done arguing or done with us? Both. The finality in my tone seemed to land. Then her entire posture shifted, as if she suddenly grasped that this wasn't merely another disagreement we would work through. That's when things became bizarre. She began trailing me around the apartment, listing all the experiences we'd shared, all the memories we'd created. But even then, every other sentence referenced her friends. Remember when we attended that concert and ran into Chloe and Adrian? What about the time we prepared dinner for the entire squad? It was as if she couldn't even conceive of experiences that were solely about us. I informed her I'd return for the rest of my items over the weekend when she would be at Tasha's pool party, because naturally, there was a pool party. I left my key on the kitchen counter and walked out. But apparently, merely leaving wasn't enough for her. Saturday morning, I was in my new place, finally feeling a sense of peace, when my phone began vibrating intensely. Marissa was calling incessantly, sending lengthy text messages about how we needed to talk this through like adults. When I didn't respond, she enlisted the squad to message me too. Chloe sent a detailed text about Marissa being devastated and how I was breaking up the family. Finn labeled me immature for ghosting instead of resolving things. Adrian attempted a more sensible approach, suggesting we all meet to discuss matters. Even Tasha, with whom I'd likely exchanged 10 conversations in 2 years, felt qualified to inform me I was making a mistake. The messages grew more aggressive as the day progressed. Remarks like, "You'll regret this," and "Marissa deserves better anyway." By Sunday evening, they were accusing me of emotional abuse for abandoning her without warning, despite the letter I'd left explaining everything. Then Monday night arrived. I returned home from work to find all 5 of them standing outside my new building. Marissa was at the front, with the squad positioned behind her like some intervention team. She started speaking the moment she saw me, loudly enough that neighbors peered out their windows. We need to resolve this right now. You don't get to just vanish and ignore everyone. We're all adults here. I told them there was nothing left to resolve. I had made my decision. I had explained my reasons, and I wasn't changing my mind. That's when Finn stepped forward with this gem. Dude, you're being a selfish piece of... Do you know how much you're hurting her? How much you're hurting all of us? All of them. I inquired what exactly I had done to harm people I barely knew. Apparently, by dating Marissa, I had become part of their family system, and leaving her was akin to abandoning all of them. You can imagine the expression on my face as I listened to this utter absurdity. It was quite literally the most codependent thing I had ever encountered. The entire scene felt surreal. Chloe was in tears. Adrian kept attempting to mediate. Tasha was recording everything on her phone for evidence of what? I had no idea. And Marissa simply stood there, nodding along as if this was all perfectly normal behavior. I informed them they had precisely 30 seconds to vacate my property before I contacted building security. When they didn't move and continued to instruct me to work things out like adults, I went inside and did exactly that. Security arrived and asked them to leave, which they did, but not before Marissa yelled that this wasn't over. That was 3 weeks ago. The calls and texts have finally ceased, but I still occasionally receive a message from an unfamiliar number, likely one of them using someone else's phone. I doubt they would attempt to appear at my building again. Management is now aware and watching for them. I don't regret leaving, but I'm genuinely astonished by the extremity of this situation. Who brings their entire friend group to harass an ex? What kind of adult behavior is that? Update 2. I'm back with another update. Honestly, I didn't expect to be posting further about this situation, but life, it seems, has a peculiar sense of humor. Firstly, things on my end are progressing very positively. My new apartment is excellent. Work has been demanding but rewarding, and I've been reconnecting with friends I'd somewhat neglected during the Marissa years. It turns out when you're not spending every weekend as the designated driver for someone else's social circle, you actually have time for your own relationships. Who would have thought? But the truly interesting development concerns Marissa and the Notorious Squad. My friend Jake works with Adrian, and apparently, the group dynamics have been shifting significantly. Remember how I mentioned Adrian was getting serious with his girlfriend, Emma? Well, they got engaged 2 weeks ago. Emma has been quite outspoken about her belief that the whole group setup is rather immature and has been encouraging Adrian to establish healthier boundaries. According to Jake, Adrian has been gradually withdrawing from the constant group activities, missing the weekly gatherings, responding less frequently to the group chat, and actually prioritizing his romantic relationship. Sound familiar? Marissa apparently lost her composure when Adrian informed her he couldn't attend their annual beach house trip because he and Emma had already scheduled a visit to her parents. "You're becoming just like Ethan," were supposedly her exact words. Because heaven forbid someone prioritizes their romantic partnership over weekend beach getaways. But it improves even further. Chloe received a promotion at work that necessitates her relocation to Portland. She's been trying to arrange virtual meetups and plan visits, but Marissa has been quite cold about the entire prospect. Apparently, she made a comment about how real friends don't abandon the group for career opportunities. Chloe is understandably hurt by this reaction to what should be joyful news. Then there's the Tasha and Finn situation. I never grasped the full story while I was dating Marissa, but apparently, those two have had an on-again, off-again thing for years that everyone simply pretended wasn't happening. Well, it's happening again, but this time it's serious enough that they want to genuinely date instead of just hooking up after group events. Marissa is not handling this well because it alters the group dynamic, and she's concerned about the implications if they break up. So, let me get this straight. When I expressed feeling deprioritized, I was deemed controlling and selfish. But now, when she's feeling deprioritized by her friends, it's suddenly a tragedy, and everyone is abandoning her. The best part, and I'm hearing this through Jake's girlfriend, who is friends with Emma, is that Marissa has been telling people that everyone is pulling an Ethan on her, as if wanting to mature and build adult relationships is some kind of betrayal epidemic that I initiated. I don't think she even realizes no one is taking her seriously anymore. Meanwhile, I've been genuinely enjoying myself for the first time in months. I attended a concert last weekend with some college friends I hadn't seen in ages. No group coordination was required. No one insisted on taking Instagram photos every 5 minutes. And I didn't have to leave early because someone needed emotional support for their latest drama. It was revolutionary. I've also been seeing someone new. Nothing serious yet, but Sarah is wonderfully refreshing. She has close friends, but she also understands that relationships necessitate dedicated one-on-one time to flourish. A novel concept, isn't it? We had dinner Friday night, just the two of us, and she didn't once check her phone. It didn't even occur to me how unusual that was until later. But here's where it gets truly interesting. 3 days ago, I received a text from Marissa. It was the first direct communication since the apartment building confrontation. "Hey, I know things ended badly between us, but I've been doing a lot of thinking. Maybe we could grab coffee sometime. I feel like we both said things we didn't mean. What in the world? I just sat there staring at my phone for about a full minute after months of complete silence, and now this. It felt like an unexpected blow. I didn't respond immediately, but then yesterday she sent another message. I know I made mistakes. I was young and didn't understand how to balance everything, but I've been learning and growing, and I think we could try again if you're open to it. I showed the messages to Jake, and he just laughed. Apparently, word has reached Marissa that I've been doing well, that I'm seeing someone new, and that I appear genuinely happier. Jake believes she's realizing that perhaps having a devoted boyfriend wasn't such an awful thing after all. The timing is quite revealing, though, right when her friend group is naturally evolving, and she's confronting the reality that people mature and their priorities shift. Suddenly, she wants to reconsider our relationship. Where was all this learning and growing when I was pleading with her to understand my feelings for 2 years? I am not responding to the messages. I don't owe her a coffee date or an opportunity to explain herself. I spent 2 years attempting to get her to comprehend what I required from a partnership, and she consistently chose to disregard those needs. I am not interested in being her backup plan now that her primary social structure is undergoing changes. Edit. Some people are asking if I believe she's genuinely changed, or if this is merely for convenience. Honestly, it doesn't truly matter. Even if she has learned something about relationships, I've moved forward. I'm building something new with someone who already understands what a partnership entails. Why would I regress? Final update. This is probably my last post concerning this entire situation, but I wanted to share how things ultimately concluded since so many of you have been following along. Marissa's text messages continued for approximately another week after my last update. Nothing aggressive or manipulative, more like she was trying to discover the precise combination of words that would elicit a response from me. A few notable ones included, I finally understand what you meant about balance. I see it now. The group isn't the same anymore. I think I was using everyone to avoid dealing with real intimacy. I miss talking to you, not even about getting back together, just talking. That last one almost got to me. We did indeed share excellent conversations, especially earlier in our relationship. But I reminded myself that good conversation does not equate to a good partnership, and I maintained my silence. Things reached a head last Tuesday. Sarah and I were having dinner at an Italian restaurant downtown when I noticed a familiar group at a corner table. Marissa, Finn, and Tasha. Adrian and Chloe were conspicuously absent. Apparently, Adrian was at some couple's event with his fiancée, and Chloe was already in Portland establishing her new life. Marissa spotted me before I could suggest we leave. Our eyes met across the dining room, and I could see her deliberating whether to approach. Sarah noticed my tension and asked if everything was all right. I briefly explained the situation. She knew I had an ex who had been reaching out, but not the full extent of the drama. To her credit, Marissa did not create a scene. She simply offered a small wave, then seemed to engage in an animated conversation with Finn and Tasha. I assumed that was the end of it, but as Sarah and I were exiting, Marissa approached us near the door.
Ethan.
Hey, I don't want to disrupt your evening, but could I speak to you for just a moment? Sarah squeezed my hand and said she would wait by the car. It was probably the most graceful way anyone has ever handled meeting their partners. Marissa looked different. Perhaps tired, or simply older. She began speaking rapidly, as if she had rehearsed it. I know you haven't been responding to my messages, and I understand why. I just wanted to say that you were right about everything. About the balance, about priorities, about what a real relationship should look like. I see Adrian with Emma, and I observe how they support each other, and I realize I never did that with you. I informed her I appreciated her saying that, but it changed nothing between us. I know. I'm not asking for another chance. I just needed you to know that I understand now. And I'm sorry, genuinely sorry for how I treated you and how I reacted when you left. It was the first time she had genuinely apologized without any qualifications or excuses. She glanced over at Sarah in the parking lot and offered a sad smile. She seems lovely. I hope she appreciates what she has.
And that was it.
She returned to her table. I went to my car, and Sarah asked if I was okay. I realized I truly was. The ironic epilogue to all this. I heard through Jake that the squad is essentially no more. Adrian is fully committed to his new life with Emma and barely communicates with the group anymore. Chloe is thriving in Portland and has forged new friendships through her work. Tasha and Finn are now officially dating, but apparently desire some distance from the group dynamic that complicated things for so long. Marissa has been trying to maintain the group's cohesion, planning events and sending nostalgic messages about the good times. But you cannot compel people to remain in a dynamic they have outgrown. She is learning what I attempted to convey to her months ago, that relationships, all relationships, demand mutual investment and understanding. When individuals feel they cannot be authentic or pursue their own personal growth, they will eventually leave. As for Sarah and me, things are progressing beautifully. She met some of my friends last weekend, and it was effortless. No one felt obligated to perform or vie for attention. Just adults socializing and getting to know one another. She's been discussing possibly taking a weekend trip together next month, just the two of us. The fact that this seems perfectly normal and exciting, rather than selfish or threatening, tells me everything I need to know about the distinction between healthy and unhealthy relationship patterns. I harbor no ill towards Marissa. I hope she discovers how to build connections that don't require her to sacrifice other important relationships. But I am grateful I possessed the courage to walk away when I did. Sometimes the most beneficial thing you can do for yourself is to refuse to accept being treated as merely an option. Thank you for all the support throughout this entire journey, Reddit. It's time to definitively close this chapter and focus on the new one.